Students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Krishnendu Ray, teaching in the Department of Ancient Indian History and Culture, University of Calcutta. Today, we are trying to learn about the module Origin of Kingship, Position and Functions of the course Indian Polity. So, learning objectives that we are going to learn today in module form is, first of all, structure of administration, under which we will be studying Ratnahobingshi ceremony, espionage, Ashtadasha Tirtha, department of the government, and empirically we will be learning some administrative reforms under Ashoka, revenue administration, and military administration and judicial administration. All these things will be treated in this module so that we can understand how administration was run in ancient India, particularly during this period, Mauryan period. So let us introduce the topic, how it is to be learned under different heads. That will be easier for you to grasp the entire picture. First of all, on the basis of historical experiences, early Indian historical experiences, as well as archaeological materials from different excavated sites of the Indian subcontinent, what we get? We get some essential features which I will be presenting. First of all, growth of human settlements as evident by the Mohenjo-daro, etc., Mehergarh, etc. Appearance of the chief. Gradually, the people came under the chief or lordship so that they could lead a disciplined life, and that's why they necessitated the existence of a chief. That's why we get the appearance of the chief. Next thing, number 3, Raja. Raja essentially was a military leader who led the people to their chosen goals. So Raja signifying the position of importance. Naturally, you can understand that Raja was not equal to all, but he was above the common people. That's why his position was higher from that of the common people, common mass. Then what we get? We get Gopati to Bhupati, another significant expression in which we read that the chief who was once the lord of the or owner of the cattle wealth now became the owner of a territorial land, a territory, Bhupati, lord of the territory of the land. Then what we get? The sovereign king. It's a very, very theoretical concept. There was no sovereign king, always multiple kings, and that's why historically we get multiple kings and their territorial kingdoms as represented in the Mahajanapadas of 6th century BC. The establishment of communications, actually what the king did, king always tried to communicate or establish communication with not only with the common people but also with those with whom he became able to establish and entrench his authority and power territorially. That's why we are speaking of communication at two essential levels. Firstly, between the king and the common people, as I have told you, common people or proja. Secondly, between the king and his associates, that is core group on which or on whom the king depended for exercising his power and authority territorially. These two levels communications are essential, absolutely essential and significant in understanding the administrative setup of not only Mauryan period but also of any other period or phases in early Indian history. So what we get in regard to the structure of administration, how the king administered or exercised his power and authority through different tiers of or different groups of people, and that is how we get the concept of the structure of administration. Here we get two particular institutions, Sabha and Samiti. Now what is Sabha? Sabha actually body was represented by the Brahmanas. Actually Brahmanas were socially superior class, elite class. They were different from the common mass. So they were considered to be or counted to be the members of what we call the Sabha. And what they did, what they functioned, their function was two, political and judicial. Essentially what we get in this regard, we get the Brahmanas actually performed those activities which were keeping or holding the tribes or the society that they had formed. So from that point of view, they perform judicial activities, political activities, so that they could retain not only themselves but also the common people. That was essentially the function of the Sabha in that remote age. Next, what we get? Samiti. Here also we find the formation. In connection with the formation, it was actually a tribal assembly. Common people used to assemble there, and gradually the king became the member, and that too was, this body became so significant. King tried to capture this body because this body represented the voice of the common people. So if king could occupy this body, king could bring this body under his authority, under his control, it means the common people, he could bring the common people under his authority, his control. So that is how the Samiti also became very important. And the king therefore attended the meetings of the Samiti and particularly directed the deliberations also, because as I told you, it represented the voice of the people. So king was concerned with as the king was concerned with the common people in connection with his power, exercising his power and authority, so he was essentially concerned with the voice of the common people, and that's why he attended the meetings of the common people, that is Samiti, and directed their deliberations as he wished to direct it. So this is how these two essential administrative bodies, administrative in the sense the king always tried to administer his authority, his power, his command over the common people. That's how these two bodies functioned in association with the king gradually. So what we actually derive from these two bodies, Sabha and Samiti, get one essential information, that king always tried to establish connection with the people, not all the people, and from those people he gradually chose some important persons who have been described in different texts as the Rotnins, that is precious gems, who are most important, that is who form the core of the king, on whom the king depended, and that's why they have been called the Rotnins. Rotnin and king relation, the relation between the Rotnins and the king was ritually established. And that's why the ritual that was performed has been called the Rotnohabingshi ceremony. This is our next point, Rotnohabingshi ceremony. The king considered them as very, very important from the administration of his authority. So from those Rotnins, some were further chosen as Omattos. This is another body, Omattos. What we get, Omattos? It is said that the word Omatto means near or with. Very clear. Those were Omattos who were near the king or always with the king, naturally in connection with the exercise of the king's power and authority territory. From Omattos, we get that some Omattos were appointed as Montrins. They were more important. So, students, you gradually see that the king always tried to choose some important persons, and gradually some important persons were gaining position along with the position of the king. They became important. This is how we come to the Montrins and Montri Porishad also. Not all those were Montris or Montri Porishad members. More important persons were represented the ears and the eyes of the king, that is, secret agents who have been described as Gurha Purusha in the Kautilya Arthashastra. In English, we get it as espionages. Espionages, secret agents, they might be students, saints, and any other persons. Actually, what they did, they secretly collected information from different walks of life related to the administration of the king and send those news to the king. So that is how the secret agents were or have been called the eyes and ears of the king. In this connection, we should note another thing. Today also, any government service applicant, when he or she gets employed, his or her papers are verified by the police or secret agents in order to judge the authenticity of the papers of the candidate. Exactly in a similar way, in ancient times also, the king, with the assistance of these secret agents, technically called the Kshatri, these secret agents collected or verified or authenticity of those people, those Amattos or Montrins, who were related with the administration or performed administrative duties, collected information about their whereabouts, about their activities, and sent those information to the king. And that is how the king could maintain his vigilance. Many works have to be done, and those works have to be done under different departments. So, exactly in the similar way, in ancient India also, we get different departments: Senapati and Palace Guard, Chief Gate Guard, Chief of the Armed Forces, Prime Minister, different head of the Palace Guard, Administrator. This is how we get many departments, and this numbered 18, and that's why in the Kautilian Arthashastra it is described as the Ashtadasha Tirtha. Remember, this is described as the Tirtha because these departments are very, very important for carrying out the responsibilities of the administration of the king. According to the Kautilya Arthashastra, we find a good number of administrative departments such as Department of Revenue under Samaharta, Treasury Department in charge of the Sannidhata, Records Department under the Akshapataladhyaksha, Koshadhyaksha heading the Receipts Department, Bhandagarika of the post-Mauryan phase, and Superintendent of Mines. So students, you can easily understand that there were so many works, and those works were managed by different heads, and that is why in the government, we find the creation of so many departments in order to manage the works related to the administration. This is how what we get: Superintendent of Gold, Suvarnadhyaksha, Superintendent of Storehouse, Superintendent who guarded the forest produce, the Superintendent who looked after the manufacture and armors and equipments. So here also we get another superintendent who regulated the weights and measures. Another important thing: weights and measures. Whether you are frauding the people, that has to be checked and watched by the king, because king for all. King cannot allow the fraudulent, cannot allow the cheater who cheats the people. So that's why, from the point of view of weights and measures, so that the trader could not cheat the common people, weights and measures that they had used had to be kept under royal checks, and that's why we find this particular department superintendent who regulated the weights and measures. Even today also we get this in our government. So, superintendent of who measured space and time. Even today also, space should not be misused, time should not be misused, and in that connection, particular department also was there. Today, we do not know whether we have it, but it is absolutely essential for smooth running of government. So, in connection with the departments of heads of departments that we have seen now in under different heads, what we get? We get that there were many varieties types of administrative jobs and works and responsibilities which had to be discharged for the interest of the common people, and those activities were performed by different heads, and that's why in order to smooth running of the administration, the king always in association with these departments, and that is why we get so many types of departments in the administrative setup. So, in connection with this, we have got from different textual sources what we get, whether those were practiced in reality. In this connection, we get some references from the Ashokan or Ashok Maurya's different royal edicts and other sources. What we get? Ashokan administrative bodies are provided with a number of administrative bodies, Nikaya, which helped the administration of Ashoka Maurya. They are as follows. Mahamatra, or as Anta Mahamatra Pillar Edict 1 of the Antapalo of the Kautilya Arthashastra, the Rajuko concerned with field survey, the Pradeshta concerned with reports from Pradesha or province, Yukta concerned with the recovery of the lost property, Yukta of the Manusamhita. Next, Pulesha agents or Rajapurusha, that is Kautilya Arthashastra models. The Prativedaka or reporters compare Choros of the Kautilya Arthashastra. The Pachabhumikas or inspectors of cowpens. This is how in Ashokan times also we get certain administrative bodies who manage the administrative affairs. Smooth running administration also requires some revenues. That is, now we come to the revenue administration. In this regard, we find two main things. First of all, agrarian revenue, 1/4 or 3/4, and non-agrarian revenue from different non-agrarian sectors, that is, potters and other occupational groups. Revenue, Boli and Bhago, that is, king enjoyed a certain amount of share from the land, and some things had to be given to the king. That was the right of the king to enjoy, to receive this. So Boli and Bhago. And what we get next? We get next from different sectors. What the sectors? The city area, the agrarian country areas, the mines, the irrigation projects, forest and pasture grounds. From these areas, taxes were collected and deposited to the royal treasury. During the emergency, when emergency arose, what the king did? During the emergency situation of the royal treasury, the taxes were collected at a high rate from peasant, artisan, traders and even the prostitutes. They were bound to pay the pronoyo. This is technically called pronoyo kor, pronoyo kriya, in which the process through which these emergency taxes were collected. Post-Maurya phase, that is 200 BCE to 300 CE. Here also taxes were collected. Here we find two important terms, Karukara and Deomeyo. Bhago, Bhogo and Boli were continued to be collected from different people, categories of people. But in addition to these, we get two important significant terms in relation to the revenues, that is Karukara and Deomeyo. It is also meant the taxes were collected from potters and others, and they were bound to, they had to pay these taxes to the king. What we get next? This I have told you just now. Deomeyo, according to Chakraborty, that is Ranabir Chakraborty, possibly meant the tax collected from, in terms of money, from trade and commerce. That is, in terms of cash, this tax had to be. Nowadays, traders also pay taxes in terms of money, possibly, and that is recorded as Deomeyo. Certain amount was paid, was payable, Deo. Now, all these administrative jobs had to be guarded against the unknown dangers or attacks of the enemy, and that's why administration always depends on the strong military force. so that they can save the country as well as the administration of the kingdom. That is why we get the military administration. Next, requisites like food, instruments, etc. were transported by the Goshokoto. The third concern was the infantry as compared to the Pottadhaksha of the Arthashastra, who knew the art of military operations in water and on land. The fourth group was in charge of the horses. At this point, also we may recall the Ashwadhaksha of the or superintendent of horses of the Kautilya Arthashastra. Students, today also our government maintains different departments, horses in under three different: air marshal, air, infantry, as well as navy. Whether navy was maintained by the Mauryas, we cannot be sure of this, though we have a clear-cut reference in the to the Nabadhaksha in the Arthashastra, but we cannot be sure of this in reality. Maybe or may not be. Next comes the punishing the wicked and defending the righteous. This is the motto of the judicial administration, because every government always tries to safeguard the common people, their interests, their properties from the attacks of the wicked. So that is why the king always maintains a judiciary system, so that he can ensure the peace of the common people, because he is for all. So what we get in nutshell, let us see that summary. What we get in a nutshell: humans have felt the necessity of having for them a capable individual for their security or protection, development and progress. So the individual who has been able to lead the people to satisfy their needs of life has been designated as the chief or king. The leader with his associates has established communication with the other people living in different parts of a particular geographical territory. Then the king has politically organized his territorial kingdom, organizing the different parts of the kingdom in turn necessitated the establishment of administration in different forms in accordance with the circumstances, in accordance with the established rule of law. The king, who with his core persons has made this institution of administration politically, economically and socially so effective as to consolidate his power and authority and right over the resources of the kingdom. In doing so successfully, the king has instituted the organization of military administration and the system of collecting revenues. Along with these measures, the king has also kept the administration under his watch through the eyes and ears of the secret agents. He has established the rule of law. So if you think something more in this regard, so you are requested to go through the e-text and the books reading list that I have provided. These will provide you more information about this particular aspect of Indian polity, early Indian polity. Thank you.